Good morning. I'm James Lyons, better known as Jim, and I want to welcome all of you to this policy conference, this inaugural policy conference. To Chair Richardson, Mayor Gray, Council Chair Mendelson, Chair Pro Tem McDuffie, Kim Horn, Kaiser Permanente, and all of our guests, thank you very much for being here for this very important conference. As I told someone a moment ago who was at an event last night, I must be honest and say to you that as I sat in the parking lot last night at 11 o'clock trying to get out of the Metropolitan Baptist Church anniversary celebration, and there's at least one other person here who was there last night, at 11 o'clock, I was trying to get out of the parking lot, and I must admit I looked at my calendar and said, do I really have an event at 9:30 tomorrow morning? Because as you know, that was in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. And I said, well, yes, I do. And then I said, well, the chairman of my board of trustees, Dr. Kreider, has already written a letter, and so I could get out of this very easily just by asking you to read her letter. But in all seriousness, I have a personal and professional stake in being concerned, obviously, about women's issues. At the personal level, you know, I've got a 93-year-old mother and a wife and 3 daughters-in-laws and 3 granddaughters and 6 nieces that I deal with every week. And there's always an issue. And then, of course, those of us in higher education know that the majority of students on our campuses are women. And so we address women's issues on a regular basis. And finally, from a university president's perspective, Title IX, and I know there's a session where you're going to be discussing Title IX, that is the hottest issue on college campuses now, violence against women. Every single day of my presidency here at the University of the District of Columbia, and my colleagues around the country will tell you that every single day we get an email, something coming to us to address Title IX, and we've got to address it. I was just telling Anna Jefferson a moment ago, I've been working on college campuses for 45 years. And I didn't know that 1 out of every 5 women on college campuses are sexually assaulted. I didn't know that, and I've been there every day. So we've got some real issues to address, and we're happy that the mayor and this policy group will be meeting. We're happy that you're here on the campus of the city's urban university to discuss not only Title IX, but health and other issues. I'm going to have to say a line that really troubles me often about running out of here. But we have the University District of Columbia has a very strong engineering program, and our accreditation team for reaffirmation, ABET, those of you who know anything about engineering, ABET arrives tomorrow. And so you can imagine what a university is going through the day before the accreditation team comes in. So if you see me running around, it's not that I'm trying to ignore you, but we're getting ready for our engineering accreditation team. So thank you all for agreeing to have this policy conference, this inaugural conference on our campus. We appreciate that, and we invite you to come back, and as we used to say in Mississippi, y'all come back soon, here. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lyons. We are so appreciative of the warm hospitality we have received already here at UDC. We thank you. We are definitely appreciative of the fact that UDC has made this space available to us at no cost, and so
be careful about the no cost.
I wasn't supposed to say that in front of the mayor. So UDC has been very hospitable to us, and in addition to the generous hospitality and sponsorship of Kaiser Permanente and the support of the mayor's office, we were able to bring you all here today at no cost. So this is, we would definitely like to give Dr. Lyons another warm round of applause. So good morning. I'm Nona Richardson. I'm the chair of the DC Commission for Women. I'm excited to welcome you here to our inaugural Women of Washington Policy Conference this morning on behalf of all of my fellow commissioners. And I'd like to take a moment right now to ask all of the commissioners to please stand so you can be recognized. And I'd also like to give a special recognition to our staff, in particular Letitia Atkins, who's the executive director. This has been, and thank you ladies, this has been a tremendous team effort to make this happen today. It's going to be a fantastic day. And as I look around at all of these smart and productive and highly capable and connected and leading women in this room, along with the mayor here, I'm really kind of wondering to myself, who's running the city right now? I'm betting and I'm imagining there are a lot, this is going to sound sexist, but there are probably a lot of men and children all over the city who are really not sure what they're supposed to be doing right now. There's probably a lot of single tasking happening this morning. So we know that you could have chosen to be a number of different places today. It's a beautiful Saturday. There's a lot going on in the city. And because we've all made sacrifices to be here, and there are people all over the city who are figuring out how to make it work without us, we decided that we better, I think we should definitely make this count today. And so we are going to have an extremely productive day. We're going to talk, I really want, actually everyone, I'd like to ask everyone right now to take a moment and be present here with us today for the day, to silence your phones, to, if you have to, send a text and say, don't call me or text me unless something's burning or somebody's bleeding heavily. If you can take a moment if you want to do that. But other than that, we'd like you to completely sort of immerse yourself in this day, take advantage of the opportunities to connect with other women, to learn and share and fully engage. If you are inclined to tweet, I encourage you to do that today. We have a hashtag, DCWomenConf, which is DC Women, C-O-N-F, that's the hashtag for today. And if you want to call out the DC Commission for Women, our handle is DC for Women. I'm also inclined to tell you that UDC would like us, when we get ready to go to panels later on, UDC would like us not to bring food into the panel rooms, so we should honor that. And in terms of logistics, I hope everyone has found the bathroom. If not, you can ask anyone here. But we'll have people throughout the day sort of helping you to find your way around. I'm really happy and excited that you all managed to find your way into this building, because I know there were some challenges even with that. So I wanted to sort of talk with you about why we're here, just very briefly, and then I'm going to bring up, oh, and also, before you even go there, I want to acknowledge our elected representatives who are here, and I'll bring them up in a few minutes to make a few remarks, but it's Saturday, and there's a lot going on, and they took the time to be here with us this morning. So can we give them a collective round of applause before they have a chance to come up? So the purpose of the DC Commission for Women and our DC government liaison, the DC Office of Women's Policy Initiatives, for those who probably never heard of the commission before you got the invitation to come here today, I wanted to give some of you a brief understanding of like what we are and what we're about. The Commission for Women serves as an advocacy organization for the empowerment of women and girls in DC and for equity and opportunity in every aspect of our society. The Commission works with the DC Office of Women's Policy and Initiatives to voice the interests of women and girls and to ensure that our elected leaders and government agencies act in our interests. The commissioners, we're all volunteers. We're appointed by the mayor, representing every ward of the city and the diversity of the women throughout the city. And you can learn more about the commission. There's a one-pager in your folder, and there's actually a little bit of information about each of us. And if any of you are thinking or interested in becoming commissioners, that's an option. You can go to dc.gov and you can learn about that as well. I'm very proud to have been appointed, as were all of the current commissioners right now, by Mayor Vincent Gray. Mayor Gray reinvigorated the DC Commission for Women when it had essentially withered from lack of funding and attention before he arrived in the mayor's office. And I do not want to sound partisan or political. I'm not at all interested in doing that, but I just wanted to give some historical context. The Commission for Women was actually created in 1967 and had been active for decades. But when Mayor Gray appointed and swore us 21 commissioners in the summer of 2012, we had our first meeting and there was nothing that we had to work with. We had no historical documents, no vision, no mission or vision or any foundation from which to build. And so we spent the first year and a half or so researching the status of women and girls in DC, learning the policy and advocacy landscape, connecting with each other and other women's organizations, and finally establishing a new mission, vision, priority issues, and policy statements. And once we sort of got our footing and felt like we knew what we were doing, the word got to the mayor, and he asked us if he could come and learn from us about what we were interested in, what we had learned, what our interests and concerns were. And he came and sat with us at one of our meetings, and we had a very substantive conversation. I'd like to think that a lot of the mayor's accomplishments since then have been, at least in some part, because of the influence of our connection. And so, I told him, so when I told the mayor that we were planning this conference, this is just another sort of thing to speak to his support. When I told him we were planning this conference, and I said to him, we are willing to plan it around your schedule. And this was many months ago. And he said, you plan it, and I'll make it work for my schedule. I'll make the time to be there. And as you can see, he's here. And so, with the mayor's support and the council's support, because I'll be talking about the support of the council in a moment as well, we're really focused on building a strong, powerful constituency in DC, and one that will exist and grow long after our terms are over and the new mayors come and go. We are determined as a commission right now to leave this commission and the women's constituency in DC better than we found it. And so during our remaining time as commissioners, we are absolutely committed to working in partnership with any and all of our elected representatives. And so this is sort of my segue into bringing up some of our elected leaders to give them a chance to bring some brief greetings. And when they're done, I'll come back and share a little bit more about the issues that I sort of referenced earlier that we've determined to be really important, and then we'll sort of talk through and get ready to start our day. So with that, I would like to bring up our fantastic mayor. I want to say just a couple things about him before he comes up. Many of you in this room are probably well aware of his very long career of service in this city. I personally have observed and admired the mayor's work, his work ethic, his intellect, his compassion, and his dedication to our city since he was first elected to the council, then as a chair, and then as the mayor. And as a daughter of this city, I want to say thank you, Mayor Gray, for your service, and I'd like for all of us to acknowledge him and bring him up.
First of all, I want to thank Nona for such a nice introduction. She read that just as I wrote it last night. No, of course not. You know, I want to thank her, first of all, for having taken on the leadership of the commission. She really, I think, understated where we were. In a word, we were nowhere. It was a body that was created back in 1967, a number of years before home rule, limited home rule, and I'll come back to that in a second, took effect here in the District of Columbia. And yet, when we got here, it essentially didn't exist. It was as Phil and I were just saying, it existed on paper. And really there was no commitment to moving forward with policy initiatives that were so important on behalf of women here in the District of Columbia. So, Nona, I want to thank you so much for the absolutely tireless work that you have done with the commission. We have 21 commissioners, but you are the lead commissioner, and I don't have any reservations about saying today that had it not been for your work, your commitment, your absolute dedication to this, there's no way that we would be standing in a room where you can't even get a seat at this point. So thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here with our chairman, Phil Mendelson, also. He and I met for 2 hours yesterday. We try to meet at least once a week, don't we, Phil? Yeah, we won't even talk about what that issue was either, will we? But anyway, I'm delighted that he is up and out with us today, and I appreciate the work that he does as the chairman of our council, as someone who had the opportunity to be able to serve in that capacity. I know how demanding that job is, trying to deal with 12 other people, all of whom have their own ideas, their own approaches. People describe it as herding cats. That would be a mild description of what the challenge is like. So, Phil, thank you so much for the leadership that you provide. I want to thank our Chairman Pro Tem, Councilmember McDuffie, for being here. And just in the interest of full disclosure, I can't imagine him having the nerve not to be here today. The commissioners know that his wife is on the commission, right? And I don't know what explanation you would have come up with to say that you had something else to do, but being the smart man that you are, you showed up and you were here early this morning. And I want to thank Councilmember McDuffie also for his leadership in Ward 5. It's been a delight to be able to work with him. We just finished, I guess, a couple of months ago, a report that I know he wanted to do, something we wanted to do to focus on how we convert the industrial presence in Ward 5 to a much more mixed use presence. And I think we have a blueprint now to be able to do that. So, Kenyon, I want to thank you for your leadership in so many ways, and especially being here today. I also want to thank Letitia Atkins. Letitia is our Executive Director of the Office of Women's Policy and Initiatives at this stage, and really has done a lot of the work to be able to get us all into this room today. And frankly, a person in a position like mine would hope that this is not episodic, that this is emblematic of how we will move forward, focusing on women's issues in the District of Columbia as we go forward. And there are a lot of issues to be able to focus on, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm really glad that we've been able to do something with family medical leave. We are a national leader at this stage. The legislation became effective on October 1st. I was proud to be able to put it into the budget this year, and also the council heartily supported it, and that is that 8 weeks of leave will be available for events in the lives, and especially of our women who will have a chance, when they become pregnant and have babies, will have a chance to be able to bond with their, with their children, their newborns, in ways that otherwise would not be available. And it's not just confined to women, by the way. We are making it available to men as well. But on certain issues, it will have a greater impact on women, and there really are few other jurisdictions in the nation that have that. We also are pleased, I was pleased to be, because I was the chair of the council when we did this, to be able to focus on marriage equality. Isn't it amazing how in just a few short years, and we did talk about this yesterday too, didn't we, Phil? How in a few short years we've come from this being an issue about which people were screaming and yelling and invoking religious principles around this, to the point now where it's people trying to get to another place so that they don't appear to have been on the wrong side of history. And there are some people who were on the wrong side of history. And ladies, and the few gentlemen in the room, the District of Columbia was not on the wrong side of history. We were a front runner on marriage equality. And we continue to be. And I think it's one of the reasons why, with the attitudes and policies that we've developed, that we now are such a growing city, rapidly growing. We're growing by 1,000 to 1,200 people a month at this stage. We now have 660,000 people who live in the District of Columbia, and we have a population that is bigger than at least 2 states, bigger than the entire state of Wyoming, bigger than the entire state of Vermont. And ladies, that ought to be a harbinger of things to come. And by the way, we handed out to you today one of our, we call them the rankings cards, why the District of Columbia is the place to be. And there's 2 or 3 things I just want to call quickly to your attention on. In that first column, and these are things we ought to be proud of and things we can build upon, and things I hope you will discuss today. And the first is, if you see in that first column, and that is the side where it says why the District of Columbia is a good place to be. For those of you looking for them in your purple package, they're not in there. They were just passed out a couple of minutes ago. Anybody have them? Who has them? Good. I just happened to focus on you over there as you were moving through your packet quickly, and I wanted to stop you from looking for something that I knew wasn't there. Notice that almost, just before you get to the end, that according to, there's rankings that are given, like, by all kinds of organizations now. And of course, we go searching for those that are positive for the District of Columbia, as you might imagine. But there's an organization that has determined that the District of Columbia is the #1 best U.S. city for female entrepreneurs. And doesn't that bode well for the future, ladies, in terms of what we're doing here? And if you go over to the other side of that column, we are the #1, right at the very bottom, we are the #1 best U.S. city for women in business, which obviously is a related issue. And over on the other side, at the top of the left side of that column, there is one that I think is hugely important, and we got to get to #1 on this, but we are the #2 best paying city in America for women. We pay, it's not anything to be hugely proud of, but we are at about, I think, 89 or 90% of what men make. But you know what? We can't rest until that is a 100% parity, right? We can't rest until we get that. And again, you've got issues that have been laid out today, and I'm looking forward to being able, I know you'll see that I get the follow-up, the results of today's discussion. But Dr. Lyons mentioned Title IX, which has been around since the early 70s, and we still don't have equality and parity, especially at the collegiate level of women participating in sports. They're some of the most underfunded endeavors at the collegiate level, and it's almost as if some people still think they're doing folks a favor to be able to have investments in women's sports at the collegiate level. And the domestic violence issues really are at an epidemic level. You saw the Ray Rice situation. You've seen what's happened on some of our college campuses. You see the situation with Jameis Winston. You see other circumstances involving some of our professional football players, and frankly, it is time for that to stop, ladies and gentlemen. One incident is one incident too many. And then there's another issue that I would invite you all to address. I think we have a population of women that far exceeds the population of men in the District of Columbia, so you have the power in your hands, just a matter of being able to use it. And that is the unique disenfranchisement of people who live in the District of Columbia, and it is time for that to end as well. I made a statement just a second ago about the population comparison, and that is we have more people in the District of Columbia than the entire state of Wyoming, more people than the entire state of Vermont. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how we continue to tolerate the hypocrisy of democracy in the District of Columbia, because that is what it is. It is America that goes all over the world, touting why people should observe equality, why people should have an opportunity to be able to participate, in Afghanistan and Iraq and now in Syria and other nations. But what about our own nation's capital? What about a place that is uniquely disenfranchised, where we're told that our woman, Congresswoman, who is one of the most effective in the House of Representatives, when she goes down to the House floor, she has to simply take a seat and watch the proceedings take place? That is absolutely unconscionable and unfair, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time for it to end. How can we tolerate continue to tolerate the fact that we have policies in the charter that was frankly included, you know, when home rule was given to the District of Columbia, if that's what you can call it. How can we tolerate the fact that we raise the money in the District of Columbia through our own property taxes, through our own sales taxes, through our own income taxes, and yet we have to send our budget up Pennsylvania Avenue to a group of people who, in my opinion, what they have demonstrated over and over again is that they do not know how to manage money, and we do know how to manage money in the District of Columbia. And why do we have to send our laws up the street? We have an able executive. We have an able legislative body in the District of Columbia. We don't need anybody to tell us to figure out what the policies ought to be in the District of Columbia, especially when I think the last time we sent something up there that was changed was now almost 25 years ago when anything was done with it. I don't even think they look at them anymore. But yet we still have to send stuff up there and wait supposedly 30 legislative days, which sometimes is 6 months and 9 months before something is actually approved. That's why we have this process of passing emergency legislation in the District of Columbia. Last time I looked, a third of the legislative actions are emergencies in the District of Columbia. And why do we have that? Because we have to send our laws up the street to be approved by a group of people who know nothing about the District of Columbia and do nothing, for the most part, fortunately, with our laws. We had a congressman recently from the eastern shore of Maryland who had the unmitigated chutzpah to say that the Congress was our local legislative body. Did anybody see that? Congressman Harris from Maryland. He was exercised over our position on marijuana. And he said that the Congress was our local legislative body. All I can say, ladies, is that if that were true, Lord help us. And an enterprising group, as good as they sent some people down there and said, okay, if you're our local legislators, we got some issues for you, okay? There were 35 or 40 people who went up there. But that stuff needs to stop. It is an embarrassment, it is a disgrace, and it is offensive to the people of the District of Columbia. And frankly, I hope before you leave today that you will look at this issue, that you will resolve to have our women's groups in the District of Columbia begin to take action on it, because when action is taken, it will change. Isn't that how America was formed in the first place? People got tired of paying taxes with no representation. Well, you know what? It is time for us to be tired of paying taxes with no representation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much and have a good day.
Thank you, Mayor Gray. I agree with absolutely everything you just said. Next, I'd like to bring up our council chair, Phil Mendelson, Councilmember Mendelson. He has been a fixture in this city, one of our longest serving elected representatives, and I think one of our more trusted and approachable and accessible representatives. And so I want to thank you also, Councilmember Mendelson, for taking the time actually just to be here today. It speaks volumes that you're here and Councilmember McDuffie are here. It says a lot to us about your support of what we're about. And so I'd just like to ask everyone to to give a round of applause to Councilmember Mendelson, and we'll bring him up now.
We're kind of chuckling over the how tight it is back there. I was hopeful. I just said to the mayor, I was hoping I could thank him for standing up for the legislative branch, but he moved forward instead. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you all for being here. I am going to try to be fairly brief with my comments. In fact, my staff had said I was supposed to bring greetings, and I was thinking I could just stand up and say greetings from the council, but really I should say a little bit more than that. And I could note that, and I will note that the council has taken a number of actions over the last several years that I think are important to empowering women. One of them is what the mayor mentioned, which was the legislation that the mayor submitted and we approved earlier this year regarding updating our paid family leave policy for district government workers. But we've done other things. Most recently, our last legislative meeting, we passed legislation Protecting Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Last fall, we adopted legislation working with the mayor to increase the minimum wage for workers in the city. And while you may not think of that as being a women's issue, the fact of the matter is that everybody needs to get a decent wage, and that affects women as well as men. At the same time that we passed the minimum wage legislation, we significantly strengthened our paid safe and sick law in the district, which affects both men and women, but if you think about it, oftentimes it's the mother who has to stay home for the sick child and should not have to make the choice between caring for her child or whether she has a job. And then over the years, the council has consistently funded money for the Office of Victim Services, which includes a lot of funding to strengthen the groups dealing with domestic violence in the city. And it's always a struggle because there are so many challenges in our city and therefore in our budget. It's always a challenge to find enough dollars to fully support the efforts to reduce domestic violence. Which leads me to another point that I want to make, which I hope is one of the issues that you will be addressing. In fact, actually I know that you will be in your breakout sessions, and that is how do we get our society to recognize and deal, to confront the problem of domestic violence? The mayor mentioned Ray Rice, and I think everybody at this point realizes that the National Football League is really out of touch with the problem of domestic violence. But they're just one example. Most recently, the council had a resolution. It was actually a very nice event at our last legislative meeting where we presented a ceremonial resolution to the coalition to end domestic violence in the city. And it was to honor the work that they're doing. But behind the scenes, what the public doesn't know is that we had an internal debate to get off of the agenda, a ceremonial resolution to honor Floyd Mayweather. So, you know, we're still struggling in the city, even those of us like the council that get it, that we need to do something about domestic violence in this city. We're still struggling with the fact that there is a tenure to addressing that issue, and I hope that's something that you do address today. And if we want to empower women, then we also have to deal with other issues, such as reducing teen pregnancy. Because it is the mothers who end up getting stuck with, the child mothers who end up getting stuck with those children. And similarly, we have to address the issue of child support. We have a pretty good child support commission, child support guidelines. You know, we're dealing with this issue, I think, better than other cities, but the reality is that there are a whole lot of households, and they are single mother households, where they do not get the child support that they're entitled to. And there are a whole lot of fathers out there that aren't stepping forward. And it's not as simple as we're just going to send a bill to the father, because if the father doesn't have money, what are we going to put him in jail? That certainly doesn't help the child. But it is a serious and significant problem in this city. And if we want to empower women, we have to deal with those issues of teen pregnancy and child support. And then I'm going to just close with shifting a little bit. I remember a decade or two ago, a majority of the members of the Council of the District of Columbia were women. Today it's 4 out of 13. Why is it that there isn't more political involvement in the sense of elected representation of women in our city? And I don't want to fault anybody, but, you know, part of empowering women is women serving as role models. And there's something wrong with a city where a minority of the legislature is women. So I hope you have a great conference. Thank you for these few moments. I promised Kenyon I would be 3 minutes. I screwed it up. Well, we've taken all of his remarks away from him, but I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Mendelson, and I think he made an excellent point that we probably should start having conversations about the fact that we need to have far more women in representation in the city's government, and so that's something we need to think about going forward. Next, I would like to bring up our Council Chair Pro Tempore, Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie. I have to say that Councilmember McDuffie is one of our newer council members, and I hope I speak for many of us here who think he has breathed a breath of fresh air into the council, and he is a great representation of the new energy that we need on the council. And I would also like to say that well before his wife, the fabulous Princess McDuffie, was one of our commissioners, he was very supportive as the chair of the Government Operations Committee of us getting a substantial increase in our budget, which is a good reason why we're here today, and we've been able to put together a number of other programs and make some other important plans going forward. So I would like to thank you very much, Councilmember McDuffie, for your support and for you taking the time to be here. Let's give him a warm round of applause.
Morning. This is a really great event, and I'm delighted to be here and be a part of it. One of the things about protocol of these types of events is, if you've ever been to them, the mayor goes first, whoever's the highest ranking person after that goes next, and then I'm lower on the totem pole, and so I'm going last, and I might as well take this paper that my staff prepared for me and ball it up because they talked about everything that I had planned on talking about. But I am delighted to be here. I have to tell you, I want to really begin my remarks by thanking a couple of people, including Chair Nona Richardson and Executive Director Letitia Atkinson. They have really worked hard to transform the commission over the years that they've been affiliated with it. They've advocated on behalf of the commission to really try to do some of the things that they're doing, as well as these types of events that we're part of here today. So I really want to recognize them for their work. I want to recognize Chairman Mendelson for his leadership of the council. He has been a phenomenal steward of your resources and of the resources of the city, making sure that we do the things that are in your best interest and advocating and inputting policies that really reflect your concerns and your desires. And finally, I want to thank Mayor Gray, who has really been a tremendous supporter of mine since I've joined the council about 2.5 years ago. I really count him as a friend now, given all the guidance and insights that he's imparted on me and really been there to support my efforts as council member Ward 5. And I have to tell you, in his tenure, he has really done some things that have made me proud as a resident and proud as a council member to be able to work with him. I know that there are separate branches of government, and I believe fully in that. But it's important to recognize a person who understands that progress happens most often when you work with people. And he's really been able to work with the council as well as other elected leaders in the city, including Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, ANC commissioners, and others, to make sure that we are moving the pendulum steadily in the right direction. And so I want to take an opportunity, if you don't mind, to really recognize him. And we should probably just stand and give him a round of applause, quite frankly, because he's done a phenomenal job. Since my talking points are out the door, I just want to talk a little bit about myself and quite frankly, why I'm motivated to do some of the things that I've done. I've been a part of the council. We've done, and I've voted on some of these initiatives that the mayor and Chairman Mendelson have mentioned, and I've done so willingly, in part because of the strong women that have been a part of my life. I have a really strong mom who was born right here in the District of Columbia, who came out of DC Public Schools, who's been the rock since I was a kid and continues to be the person that brings us all together as a family. She provided that rock-solid foundation along with my dad, and it's one of the reasons I do what I do. Obviously, I've got a beautiful wife who's a member of the commission, who plays that role in our family. Without her, we simply wouldn't function in my household. I don't know about I know there are a lot of the mothers who are in here, and I know it can sound a little trite when you say, that there really takes, I think, a strong woman in families to make them move and go in the right direction. And I got to tell you, my wife is no exception to that. I am pretty busy with my schedule, but the work that she does as a working mom is no less important. It probably, frankly, is equally as important as the work that I'm doing on the council. So I really appreciate everything that she's done as a mom and a wife. But I'm also, obviously, I'm a brother of a beautiful sister, and I'm a father of 2 beautiful young daughters. And the things that we do in the city, quite frankly, are helping to pave the way for when they become adults and are trying to do things here in the District of Columbia. And so, when I look at some of the work that I've been able to accomplish with my colleagues on the council and the mayor, I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that when the folks here at this commission, including Chair Nona Richardson, came down to the council during the budget process and advocated for some additional funding. The mayor had really been great in giving them the funds that they needed to improve the commission and do more work. But I felt compelled, after hearing testimony and all the witnesses who came to testify, to increase that budget. So I added an additional $208,000 to the budget for the Commission for Women. I also added an additional in the Committee on Government Operations, which includes some of my colleagues, and the council supported fully, and the mayor signed, $120,000 to the Office on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs for domestic violence prevention initiatives, which are really important in the city. Chairman Middleton mentioned some of the high-profile incidents that we've seen play out on television, and a lot of us are wearing purple today in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But it really shouldn't take high-profile incidents or wait until the month of October to talk about domestic violence. And it really shouldn't just be a conversation about victims. Victims obviously are important, and we need to continue to do more to support them. But we also need to make sure we are talking to these batterers about what's going on so that they are aware that their behavior is inappropriate. And I know you think, and I know it only takes common sense to know that you shouldn't hit a woman, or a woman shouldn't hit a man, quite frankly. But a lot of these folks who we're dealing with, who are coming through the criminal justice system, are folks who have grown up in households without fathers, have grown up in households without images of how to be a man. And it's very important that we make sure that we have a conversation with them, and not just through punitive actions in the criminal justice system, but making sure that our kids, our young men, know at the age of 9, at the age of 13, when they're in elementary school, middle school, high school, how to talk to a woman. Because it's not just physical abuse, it's also verbal abuse. And so those are some of the things that I want to continue to work on. Obviously, I have a jewel in being able to go home to somebody who can provide a lot of insights on that. But I'm going to continue to work hard, work with a lot of the folks who are in this room. I see a lot of people who I work with in my job at the council, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all to do a lot of great work. Thank you all for inviting me here today. I really appreciate being a part of it.
Thank you, Councilmember McDuffie. Next, I want to bring up a special guest and one of our partners today. As I said at the beginning of my remarks, Kaiser Permanente is our presenting sponsor. They have underwritten the majority of our expense for this event today. And I should point out that Kaiser Permanente has been a very active supporter in this region of the well-being of women and girls. And the way that I found that out was I actually attended the Montgomery County Commission for Women's Legislative Conference actually 2 years in a row. And both of those years I noticed that Kaiser Permanente was the presenting sponsor at those events. And so I actually introduced myself to Lori and John Lupo at the event last year and told them that we were thinking about doing something similar because Montgomery County has been extremely effective at influencing and bringing forward policy and other advocacy initiatives on behalf of women and girls. They, at that conference, they've had over, I don't know how many, probably 10 or 15 years, they bring the entire delegation of the congressional delegation from Maryland shows up at their legislative conference, as well as all of their state legislators and all of their community and county level elected representatives. So they have been doing this for a while, and that they are what we aspire to be. And so I spoke with Lori and John Lupo at Kaiser while we were there, and I said, we want to do something similar to this. And they did not take any prodding whatsoever. They were very enthusiastic about supporting this and building a long-term relationship with us going forward. And so I have to say we are extremely thankful for that, and we look forward to this being an ongoing relationship. And so I want to bring up Kim Horn, who is the president and CEO of Kaiser Permanente Foundation Health Plan of the Mid-Atlantic States. She is a DC woman. She's a resident of the city, and she has a very impressive resume bio that you can see in your packet. Please welcome Kim Horn.
Good morning. I'm very proud to be here as a DC resident, that we're coming together as business people, as DC government, as well as community leaders to address the issues of women in our community. And it's all about empowering women to impact society. So I'm also proud to be a part of Kaiser Permanente, who, as many of you know, has had a long-standing tradition of supporting women in the workplace and other healthcare issues. And that commitment to women in the workplace actually has a very long legacy. You know, it started in World War II. I mean, who knows about Rosie the Riveters? It was actually our founder, Henry Kaiser, that provided jobs to those amazing women that we like to say is part of the reason why we won the war, because of their efficiency and effectiveness in shipbuilding. And they had a mantra that is we can do it. And I'd say that we can do it attitude lives, today with Kaiser Permanente. But that tradition here in women is reflected in our workplace. Over 75% of all Kaiser Permanente the workforce is actually women. And most important, particularly given the comments that the mayor had said about disparities in income and how proud we are in the district, 70% of the senior leaders at Kaiser Permanente in this region are women. I have a couple of them here today. Dr. Susan Leggett-Johnson is a senior executive of the Permanente Medical Group. She's also going to be on a panel later on today and talking about health disparities, and she's amazing. Amazing leader, amazing woman, Lori Kuiper, director of our government relations, and we have lots of other Kaiser folks around and who are women and men, but are here today that are doing amazing work. But our Kaiser Permanente's commitment to women is not just in the workplace; it's about what we do for a living. And so we know that women make the majority of decisions for their families and loved ones, but particularly around health issues and health care. And so we are very motivated, very systematic at our approach to improve the quality, convenience, and affordability of health for women. So I'm going to just give you a couple of examples of that kind of systematic work around women. Start with quality. Kaiser Permanente here in this region is the #1 leader in the country around screening for breast cancer. #1. So you're more likely, if you're a Kaiser Permanente member living here in this region, than any place else in the country to survive cancer and breast cancer. Another example of how we think about women's issues, and I'll talk about just one, convenience. We really are at the forefront of bringing health care into the home, or to wherever you're living or working or taking care of people. So many of you I see have iPhones, iPads, other kind of digital devices. We now have a program using telemedicine that allows people to, wherever they're at, call in and schedule almost immediately a face-to-face visit with a board-certified physician, and make it available so that you're not traveling or taking days off work, having to find childcare for your children, because of that inconvenience. And interestingly enough, we're finding that the majority, by far, the majority of people utilizing that service is actually women. Another interesting statistic says they're accessing that service principally during the hours of business, which tells us how people are kind of having to juggle both work and life balance. And then we're also working, and it's a mantra within the organization, and we know it, if we're going to have a healthy workforce, healthy communities, we have to work on the affordability issue, not just in the cost of health care, but affordability about accessing health. And that's why the drive towards convenience, and most of our services are all under one building, really maximizing people's time, which means time is money for many people. And so we're very, very proud to be here today, and look forward to the ongoing discussions with you all about women's issues in the district and being a part of that journey, because we still have a lot of work to do, no matter how far we've come. So thank you very much.